Black child fixed an elderly woman's TV, but the next day she brought the police to his house. What happened next is impressive. Liam was sitting on the living room floor surrounded by electronic tools and scraps of wire, a small sanctuary of creation amidst the modest apartment he shared with his mother, Rachel. The old television that Mrs. Edith had given him lay open in front of him, its interior exposed like a mystery waiting to be solved. He adjusted the components skillfully, his small hands working quickly as his mind buzzed with thoughts about circuits and connections. "You can do it, my love," Rachel said from the kitchen, where she was preparing a snack. She looked at him with a proud smile on her face. "If anyone can fix this old relic, it's you. I just need to find the right capacitor," Liam replied without taking his eyes off the television. "I think I found the problem. If I do this, it will work again." He was so immersed in his task that the sounds of the neighborhood outside seemed distant, as if the world beyond didn't matter. After a few minutes of intense concentration, Liam finally made the last connection and turned on the television. A flash of light illuminated the room, and the screen began to show a blurry image that quickly adjusted, displaying a scene from an old black and white film. "I did it! Look, Mom!" he exclaimed, getting up and turning to Rachel, excitement shining on his face. "That's amazing, Liam. You're a genius." Rachel laughed, coming over to him and giving him a warm hug. "Mrs. Edith is going to be so happy when I tell her." After a brief moment of celebration, Liam and Rachel headed to Mrs. Edith's house, which was just a few doors down. The woman was a peculiar figure in the neighborhood, known both for her generosity and her distrust of young people, especially those living nearby. When they knocked on the door, Liam felt a flutter of nerves. He always had a certain apprehension when meeting her. "Oh, Liam, did you bring back my television?" Edith asked, opening the door with a curious look. She was an elderly woman with gray hair and a stern expression, and her voice had a tone that made Liam feel small. "Yes, Mrs. Edith. I fixed it," he smiled, trying to convey confidence. "Let's see then," she replied, leading them into the living room. Liam turned on the television again and the movie reappeared on the screen. For a brief moment, Edith's face lit up, but it quickly returned to her usual serious demeanor. "Is that so? Very well, young man. But if you've deceived me, you'll pay for it," she said with a warning tone. "I wouldn't trick you, I promise." Liam spoke quickly, his heart racing. The tension in the air was palpable, but he tried to remain calm. As they talked, something unusual happened. A noise echoed in the room, and suddenly the old pocket watch that Edith kept on a shelf vanished. The woman, who had appeared somewhat pleased until then, immediately transformed. Her eyes narrowed and she glared at Liam with suspicion. "What did you do with my watch?" she asked, her voice now tinged with anger. "I didn't do anything, Mrs. Edith, I swear," Liam replied, feeling a wave of desperation wash over him. He looked at Rachel, who also appeared perplexed. "You were here and now it's gone. I can't believe you did this, boy." "I always knew I couldn't trust you," Edith accused, her voice rising as neighbors began to gather outside, drawn by the commotion. "Edith, please, give Liam a chance. He's a good boy," Rachel intervened, but the woman seemed unyielding. "He's just a child, but he's not to be trusted. I know he took my watch," Edith exclaimed, now shouting. The tension escalated, and Liam felt the ground opening beneath him, the pain of betrayal and injustice hitting him like a blow. Neighbors began to whisper and look at Liam with distrust, and he felt completely isolated. At that moment, the community that had always been his home seemed to transform into a hostile place. The afternoon sun filtered through the clouds, casting a soft light over the working-class neighborhood of London. However, inside the small police station, the atmosphere was far from peaceful. Officer Thompson, an average-sized man with graying temples, felt torn. He had always had a good relationship with the residents of the neighborhood, but the recent accusation against Liam, a boy he had known since he was small, left him uneasy. Liam isn't a thief, Thompson thought, recalling the times he had seen the boy fix electronic devices, always with a smile on his face and admirable willingness. But the pressure from the community was mounting. That morning, while coffee brewed in the small kitchen of the station, several residents had already lined up to express their outrage. "He has to be punished. We can't allow boys like him to roam free," shouted one of the neighbors, a burly man who always preferred to act with loud voice rather than reason. Thompson sighed, trying to maintain his composure. "I understand everyone's concern," he replied, trying to be diplomatic. "But we need to let the investigation take its course, An accusation is not proof of guilt. The officer's voice trembled slightly, not from a lack of conviction, but from the pressure he felt. He knew that if he didn't take action soon, the situation could escalate. Meanwhile, at Liam's home, the tension was palpable. Rachel, the boy's mother, felt a knot tightening in her chest. Edith's words echoed in her mind, and the growing distrust in the community left her distressed. She decided that she needed to do something. With determination, she stood up and headed to the police station. Upon entering, she spotted Thompson talking to other officers. He raised his eyes, and upon recognizing Rachel, gestured for her to come closer. "Rachel, good to see you," Thompson said, but his voice carried a note of concern. "Thompson, I came because I'm very worried about Liam. He's innocent. You know that. We can't let this injustice continue." Her voice trembled, but there was an undeniable strength in her words. I know," Thompson replied, scratching his head. "But the pressure is intense. You have no idea what the residents are demanding. And I want justice. Liam is just a child. He doesn't deserve this," Rachel exclaimed, her hands shaking as she tried to control her emotions. "He's a good boy, always helping others. We can't let a mistake define him. What can I do?" Thompson looked into Rachel's eyes, feeling her desperation. "If I don't follow protocol, I'll be questioned. I need concrete evidence." "Then let's find that evidence." "Fine. Let's discover the truth together," Rachel insisted, her heart pounding. "If you care about the community, you should care about my son's future." Meanwhile, on the street, Liam paced back and forth, trying to understand how life had changed so abruptly. He remembered the laughter, the smell of bread coming out of Mrs. Edith's oven, and the afternoon spent fixing things for the neighbors. Now everything felt like a nightmare, and the feeling of betrayal consumed him. He decided he couldn't wait passively. "If no one is going to help me, I'll find out the truth myself," he murmured to himself, determined to clear his name. Later, when he returned home, Liam found Rachel sitting at the table looking worried. "Mom, what happened at the station?" he asked, his tone filled with anxiety. "Thompson is trying to help, Liam. He cares about you, but the pressure from the community is huge. We need proof to prove your innocence," Rachel replied, trying to stay calm. "But what if no one believes me? What if I'm always seen as a thief?" The fear in Liam's voice was palpable. "Look, my love, what matters is that you know who you are. And I know you're a good kid. We will get through this. We will find the truth together," Rachel said, her voice full of love and determination. The bond between mother and son was strong, but the shadow of distrust loomed over them. Liam felt the weight of injustice was just beginning, and he needed to act quickly before it was too late. Liam sat on one of the steps at the entrance of his building, watching his friends approach. Marcus, with his messy hair and wide smile, was the first to arrive. He had a sparkle in his eyes that indicated he was ready for action. "Hey, Liam, ready to solve this mystery?" Marcus asked, clapping his hands enthusiastically. "More than ready," Liam replied, adjusting his backpack. "I think we need a plan. I can't just sit here while the community thinks I'm a thief." The weight of the accusation still rested on his shoulders, but his determination to clear his name lit up his gaze. Joined by Sarah and Tom, both with serious expressions, they began to strategize. "So, what's our plan?" Sarah asked, crossing her arms. "We need to find out where the clock disappeared. Edith said she had it at the party, but no one has seen it since then." "That's right," Tom agreed, looking around as if he expected the thief to show up out of nowhere. "We can start by asking the neighbors if they saw anything suspicious that night." Liam raised an eyebrow, pondering an idea. "What if we went to the park? Maybe someone saw something or even found other lost items." He stood up, renewed with energy, and began walking toward the exit of the neighborhood. His friends followed him, discussing possibilities. "If we find the clock, we can prove I didn't take it," Liam said, his voice filled with hope. The group walked toward the park, where children played and adults chatted carefree. But for Liam, every face was a mask hiding the truth. Upon arriving at the park, they decided to split up to cover more ground. "Let's meet at the fountain in an hour," Sarah suggested, "and stay alert. We need any information that can help us." While exploring, Liam and Marcus approached a group of kids playing soccer. "Hey guys, have you seen an old clock around here? Or anyone acting strangely?" Liam asked, trying to sound casual. One boy with a backward cap looked at them suspiciously. "I don't know anything, but I saw a new kid around here earlier. He looked kinda weird." The boy made a face, recalling. "He was messing with a cardboard box near the trash can." "What kind of kid?" Liam questioned, feeling his heart race. He had dark hair, was taller than us, and wore a ripped hoodie. If you ask me, he's pretty strange, the boy replied, laughing. Let's investigate this, Marcus said, a determined look in his eyes. If this kid is involved, maybe he knows where the clock is. The boys said goodbye and ran toward the trash can mentioned. Upon arriving, they found the cardboard box, but it was empty. Nothing here, Marcus grumbled, kicking a pebble. We'll have to ask more people. Liam looked around and saw an elderly woman sitting on a nearby bench. Maybe she knows something, he suggested, pulling Marcus by the hand. Excuse me, ma'am, sorry to interrupt, but have you seen any boy acting strangely around here? The woman looked up, seeming intrigued. Oh, yes, dear. I saw a boy here last week. He had a heavy backpack and seemed to be looking for something. I don't know if it's what you're looking for, but he seemed a bit suspicious, she said, shaking her head. I think he went towards the abandoned warehouse. An abandoned warehouse? Liam murmured, his mind buzzing with possibilities. Thank you, ma'am. He exchanged a meaningful glance with Marcus, who looked as excited as he did. Let's go. The warehouse might be our best lead so far, Marcus said, starting to walk quickly in the direction indicated by the woman. If he's there, we might find more than just Edith's clock. He could have stolen other things too. Liam felt his adrenaline surge as they headed toward the warehouse. That place had always been a mystery, with broken windows and faded walls, but now it felt like the epicenter of their hopes. Let's be careful, okay? We don't know what we might find there, Liam warned, adjusting his backpack. No worries. I'm always ready for an adventure, Marcus replied, giving Liam a slap on the back. I just hope we don't get into trouble. We just need the clock, Liam said, determined. And who knows, maybe we'll clear my name once and for all. They approached the warehouse, ready to uncover the mystery surrounding them. On a sunny day, light filtered through the windows of Edith's house, illuminating the walls decorated with black and white photos from a happier time. The elderly woman, now with gray hair and features marked by time, gazed at the image of her youth, filled with dreams and hopes. In the photo, she was surrounded by friends, all smiling and full of life. A sad smile formed on her lips as she remembered who she was before she allowed bitterness to take over. The doorbell rang, interrupting her thoughts. Edith hesitated but decided to answer. Upon opening the door, she found a gray-haired man with a gentle gaze. It was Arthur, a longtime friend she hadn't seen in years. Arthur, it's been so long, Edith exclaimed, an unexpected sparkle in her eyes. Edith, my dear, I thought I would never see you again, he replied, enveloping her in a warm embrace. How have you been? Oh, you know how it is. Life hasn't been easy, she said, pulling back a little to look into his eyes. Things have changed so much since you left. Arthur paused, sensing the sadness hanging over her. I heard about what happened with the pocket watch. It's a shame you accuse that boy. He's just a child. Edith frowned, feeling defensive. He was there. He's a street kid. We can't trust him. He was probably just waiting for an opportunity. Edith, Arthur began softly. Remember how we were when we were young? We weren't like this. You always had a good heart full of compassion. She looked away, feeling her internal defenses begin to crumble. I was just protecting myself. After losing everything, I can't afford to trust anymore. But you don't have to live like this. We all face hardships. That doesn't mean we should close our hearts, he insisted, concern lacing his tone. Look at Liam. He's just a boy. He doesn't deserve to be treated like a criminal without proof. Edith hesitated, Arthur's words resonating in her mind. The image of Liam, the boy who had fixed her television, came back to her. He had worked so hard, showing a talent she had never seen before. I just don't know who else to trust. People have always disappointed me. You need to remember the good people that are still out there, Edith. Don't let bad experiences shape your view of the world. Sometimes even the most trustworthy people can disappoint us, Arthur said, looking her in the eyes. But that doesn't mean you should close your heart. His words penetrated Edith, making her reflect on her life. You're right, Arthur. I let fear and distrust take over. I've become a person I no longer recognize. It's normal to feel that way, but it's time to change. Look around. What do you see? A new generation full of potential, just like you were once, he encouraged. Give them a chance. You can start by apologizing to that boy. Edith felt a knot in her throat. Arthur's words were an invitation to redemption. Do you think he would forgive me? If you're sincere, absolutely. We all make mistakes, and what matters most is learning from them, he replied, smiling gently. Life is full of second chances, Edith. Take this one. With renewed determination, Edith felt a surge of hope. Maybe it's time for me to take a step forward and try to regain what I lost. Not just the watch, but trust and the joy of living. Arthur smiled, satisfied. That's right. Remember, Edith, the light of trust can illuminate even the darkest places. You just have to let it in. The conversation with Arthur echoed in her mind as she watched him walk away. The weight of her prejudices began to lift and a new determination was born within her. It was time to face her fears and open her heart again. Rachel was sitting at the table in the small kitchen she shared with Liam, her trembling hands holding a cup of tea that had long since gone cold. The aroma of chamomile tea mixed with the smell of the bread she had forgotten in the oven, but none of that mattered at that moment. Her mind was filled with worries and anguish. As she looked out the window, the afternoon shadows began to stretch, mirroring the darkness settling in her heart. "Liam," she called, her voice quivering. "We need to talk about what's going on." The boy entered the kitchen, still with a look of despair on his face. He shook his head, frustrated, and sat down at the table. "Mom, I don't know what else to do. No one believes me," he exclaimed, his eyes burning with indignation. Rachel felt a pain in her chest seeing her son so distressed. He had become a target of suspicion in his own community, and she knew that was weighing heavily on him. "I know, sweetheart, but we need to be strong." She took a deep breath, trying to gather courage. "I'm going to the precinct to talk to Thompson. He's a good person and can help us." Liam paused, looking at his mother with a mix of hope and skepticism. "Do you think he can do anything?" he asked, his voice low. "I believe so. Thompson has always been fair." Rachel tried to convey confidence, but uncertainty consumed her as well. "It's time for someone to hear our side of the story." Suddenly, like a light had turned on, Liam stood up abruptly. "I want to go with you," he said, determination in his voice. "I don't want to just sit here waiting for everything to get better." Rachel hesitated, worried about exposing Liam to more suspicion. "I don't know if that's a good idea, Liam," she said, running her hand through her son's hair. "You're already in a tough situation." "Mom, I can't just stand by," Liam shouted. "They need to hear me." She saw the flame of determination in his eyes and realized she couldn't stop him. "Okay," she agreed, "but you need to stay calm and follow my lead. We'll just talk, and if things get tense, we'll leave." The two set out from home, and the walk to the precinct felt longer than usual. The sun was setting on the horizon and the sky was tinged with orange and purple. Rachel held Liam's hand, trying to convey security, but her mind was full of worries. When they arrived at the precinct, the atmosphere was colder than she remembered. The smell of coffee and paper mixed with the tension in the air. Rachel approached the counter where a receptionist watched them with an impersonal gaze. "Hello, I would like to speak with Officer Thompson, please," Rachel asked, trying to keep her voice steady. The receptionist nodded and gestured for them to wait. After a few minutes, Thompson appeared, his face lighting up when he saw Rachel and Liam. "Rachel, Liam," he greeted warmly, but his expression quickly turned serious. "What are you doing here?" Rachel took a deep breath, feeling a knot in her throat. "We need to talk to you about what happened with Liam," she said, her voice wavering slightly. Thompson gestured for them to sit at one of the nearby tables. "I'm listening. What happened?" Liam, still a bit nervous, began to speak. "I didn't steal anything. Mrs. Edith is wrong, and just because I'm... He hesitated, searching for the words. "Just because I'm a kid from the neighborhood, everyone assumes I'm guilty." Thompson looked at the boy, his expression softening. "Liam, I know the situation is tough, but we need to find out the truth." Rachel, touched by Thompson's empathy, intervened. "I just want you to know how much this situation is affecting my son. He's a good kid, and no one should be treated this way." Her gaze was filled with pain and determination. "What can we do to prove his innocence?" Thompson hesitated, looking at Rachel thoughtfully. "We can investigate further, but I need you to understand that the pressure from the community is intense," he said, glancing at Liam. "Some people have already made up their minds, but we can't let that stop us from finding the truth." "So you will help us?" Liam asked, hope starting to resurface. "I will do everything I can," Thompson affirmed, nodding. "But I need you to help me too. Otherwise it will be hard to find the real culprit." Rachel felt a wave of gratitude, but also the weight of what lay ahead. "We'll do whatever it takes," she promised, looking into her son's eyes. "We're in this together, right, Liam?" He nodded, and for the first time in days a faint smile appeared on his face. "We're together, Mom." With that promise, Rachel felt a spark of hope. She knew the battle was far from over, but she was ready to face any challenge alongside her son. The sun began to set on the horizon, casting a golden light over the narrow streets of the working-class neighborhood. Officer Thompson, a man who always strived to be fair, found himself in a dilemma. He walked among the residents who looked at him with expectation, knowing that many wanted him to take action against Liam. The 12-year-old boy, a prodigy in electronics, had been wrongfully accused of stealing an antique pocket watch from Mrs. Edith. Now, the pressure on Thompson grew with each passing day. He stopped in front of a group of residents who were talking animatedly. "What are you going to do, Thompson? That kid can't go unpunished," shouted one man, his face flushed with indignation. Thompson took a deep breath, trying to find the right words. "I understand your concerns, but we need concrete evidence before we act. Liam is just a child, and as far as I know, he doesn't have a criminal record. But Mrs. Edith is devastated, and you know how hard it is to live here. We can't have thieves roaming free," retorted a woman, her voice trembling with emotion. Thompson felt his heart tighten. He knew that prejudice and distrust were spreading like wildfire, but he also understood Liam's innocence, a boy who just wanted to help his community. "I will investigate further," Thompson said, trying to calm the crowd. "If there's a thief around here, I want to find him, but it's important that we all remain patient and fair." He stepped away from the group, knowing he couldn't please everyone, but determined to do what was right. Upon returning to the station, Thompson sat at his desk and began reviewing the case notes. He couldn't ignore the pressure from the community, but he also didn't want to be responsible for harming an innocent person. During a conversation with other officers, he heard rumors about a thief active in the area, causing his heart to race. "We need to find out who this thief is before another innocent person pays the price," he thought. In an informal meeting with his colleagues, Thompson commented on the situation. "It seems we have a thief in our neighborhood, and the last thing I want is for him to take advantage of the chaos that's already happening. But Liam is innocent, and he needs our help," he said, finally deciding to take a stand. "Do you really believe that kid isn't guilty? The community is on your back, and if you don't act soon, it might be you who faces the consequences," one of the officers argued, clearly less optimistic. Thompson looked into his colleague's eyes, feeling a wave of frustration. "I know Liam. He may just be a kid, but he's a good kid. We can't let the pressure make us act impulsively." That night, as the city lights flickered in a nearly hypnotic pattern, Thompson decided he needed to do something. He went out on patrol, watching every corner and every suspicious movement. Adrenaline coursed through his veins as he wondered if he could find any clues that would lead him to the real thief. While walking through the streets, he saw a group of teenagers chatting in a corner. One of them, a nervous-looking young man, glanced quickly at Thompson and then looked away. "Hey you, what are you doing here?" Thompson asked, approaching. The boy hesitated, shaking his head. "Nothing, just hanging out," he replied, his voice trembling. "Have you guys seen anything suspicious around here? A watch went missing, and I'm here to find out what happened," Thompson said, trying to be friendly. The young man looked at his friends, who appeared anxious. "I don't know anything, Sergeant," he said, before quickly walking away. Thompson stood silent, watching the group disperse. A feeling that something wasn't right nagged at him. He decided he needed to dig deeper into his investigation to see if there was a connection between the nervous boy and the theft. But as he headed back to the station, the weight of the community's pressure still rested on his shoulders. The dilemma between truth and neighborhood expectations consumed him, and he knew he had to act cautiously to protect not only Liam, but the entire neighborhood. Liam and his friends gathered in the park, the atmosphere charged with determination and a hint of anxiety. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink as shadows began to stretch. They knew that the search for Edith's watch was more than just a challenge. It was a matter of honor. Liam's honor, which was threatened by the accusation hanging over him. "Let's do a real treasure hunt," said Marcus, his best friend with a spark in his eyes. "If we find the watch, we can prove you're not the thief." "And what if we find other stolen items?" suggested Sarah, a girl in the group with a knack for creative ideas. "We can show there's a real thief out there and that we're not just a bunch of kids with nothing better to do." Liam nodded, feeling the energy of the group was contagious. "Then let's divide the neighborhood into areas and search each one. We need to be quick and careful. No one should see us, or they'll think we're doing something wrong." The friends agreed, and soon they spread out across the neighborhood, each heading in a different direction. Liam decided to start on the street where Edith lived. He remembered every corner, every shadow, as if his heart were guiding his steps. As he walked, his thoughts buzzed with the possibility of finding the watch and clearing his name. "Hey, Liam," a familiar voice called out. It was Marcus, who appeared from around the corner with an excited look. "I've been thinking, what if we ask some of the neighbors about what they've seen? Someone might have noticed something suspicious." "Great idea," Liam replied, equally enthusiastic. "Let's go to Mr. Thompson's house. He usually sits on his porch and might have seen something." The two boys ran over to old Thompson's house, where the elderly man always made a point to greet the neighborhood kids. When they arrived, they found him sitting in a rocking chair with a book in his hands. He looked up, his eyes sparkling with curiosity. "Hi, boys, what kind of trouble are you getting into today?" he asked, smiling. "We're trying to solve a mystery, Mr. Thompson," Marcus said, nearly bouncing with excitement. "Have you seen anything strange around here lately? Any strangers or anything that didn't seem right?" The old man furrowed his brow, deep in thought. "Well, I've seen a young guy around here a few times, but I didn't pay much attention. He seemed a bit different, you know? He wore a hood and he always looked around as if he were scared." "Do you remember when that was?" Liam asked eagerly. I think it was last week after that robbery happened. He was near the park, but I can't say for sure if he's involved in anything bad. He might just be a shy kid." Liam and Marcus exchanged significant glances. "We need to find that kid," Liam said, already formulating a plan. "If he's acting suspiciously, he might know something about the robbery. Let's check out the park later," Marcus suggested, already moving to leave. The friends then separated again, with Liam heading toward the park. He was determined to uncover the truth. As soon as he arrived, he started scanning the area, paying attention to any unusual movements. While walking, he noticed a young man in a hood leaning against a tree. He looked nervous, frequently glancing around. "That's him," Liam whispered to himself. "Let's see what he's up to." Quietly, Liam approached, keeping a safe distance. The young man was fiddling with something in his hands, and Liam could barely contain his curiosity. "Marcus, come here," he called in a hushed tone. Marcus came over, and upon seeing the young man, his eyes widened. "What's he doing?" Liam observed more closely and realized the boy was rummaging through a backpack. "I don't know, but I think we need to find out. Let's hide behind that tree and see what happens." The two crouched behind a leafy tree, hoping the young man wouldn't spot them. The boy, still restless, finally opened the backpack and began pulling out several items. Liam and Marcus exchanged worried and intrigued looks. "If he's got stolen stuff, we need to call the police," Marcus whispered. "But what if he's not the thief? We need to be sure before taking any action," Liam replied, his heart racing. "Let's wait and see if he does anything else." The young man looked around again, and at that moment, Liam was certain he was about to uncover something important. The tension in the air was palpable, and they could hardly wait to see what would happen next. With adrenaline coursing through their veins, Liam and his friends sneaked into the abandoned warehouse, the dim light filtering through broken windows. The musty smell and the feeling of neglect surrounded them, but their goal was clear: recover Edith's watch and clear Liam's name. They moved silently, alert to any movement. When they heard a noise coming from a dark corner, Liam's hopes soared. "Did you hear that?" Marcus whispered, gripping Liam's hand tightly. "Yeah, let's go," Liam replied, determined. Cautiously, they approached the source of the sound, and, as they turned the corner, they came face to face with a hooded young man, rummaging through a box full of items. Liam's heart raced. It was him, the suspect they had seen earlier. "It's him!" Liam exclaimed, crouching down. "It has to be him." Before they could move closer, the young man looked up, his eyes widening at the sight of them. With a quick movement, he turned and bolted, rushing out of the warehouse. "Let's go after him," Liam shouted, already sprinting toward the exit. His friends followed, racing across the uneven terrain leading out of the warehouse. The adrenaline pushed them forward, and soon they found themselves in a narrow alleyway. The young man was still ahead, but Liam could feel they were closing the gap. "He's going to hit the main street," Marcus shouted, out of breath. Just when Liam thought they would lose him, the young man tripped over a stone and fell. He quickly got back up, but not before Liam caught up to him. "Stop," Liam ordered, grabbing the young man's arm. "You have something that belongs to Edith." The kid looked back, panic filling his eyes. "I didn't do anything. Let go of my arm." "You're the thief, aren't you?" Liam asserted, unafraid. "Where's the watch?" At that moment, a police car screeched to a halt beside them. Officer Thompson, who was on patrol, stepped out of the vehicle with a determined expression. Upon seeing the scene, he quickly approached. "What's going on here?" Thompson asked, his voice firm but not hostile. He's the thief, Liam said, pointing at the young man. He took Edith's watch. Thompson looked at the young man who was now shaking. Do you have anything to say? The young man hesitated, but the pressure of the situation was palpable. I was just trying to grab some stuff to sell. I didn't want to cause trouble. That's no excuse, Thompson said, regarding the boy with a serious look. You're going to need to come with us. With Thompson's help, the young man was taken back to the warehouse. Liam, still panting, felt a mix of relief and disbelief. What had seemed like a nightmare was now taking a turn he never imagined. Let's find what you took, Thompson said, turning to Liam. Would you mind helping me identify the items? Nodding, Liam approached the warehouse again. Now calmer, he and Thompson began searching through the disordered boxes and bags. After a few minutes, Liam spotted a familiar glimmer. There! He pointed, rushing over to a small wooden box partially hidden under a torn piece of cardboard. With careful movement, he opened the box, and to his immense joy, there was Edith's pocket watch, shining in the dim light. I found it! Liam shouted, holding the watch with both hands. Emotion flooded through him. Thompson smiled, proud of the boy. Well done, Liam. Let's take this back to Edith. Together, they returned to Edith's house where she was waiting anxiously. Upon seeing the watch, tears filled her eyes. I can't believe it, murmured Edith, her voice trembling. Did you really find it? Yes, Liam said, handing the watch to her. We did it. Edith cradled the watch in her hands as if it were a lost treasure. The expression of distrust on her face began to melt away, giving way to a mix of gratitude and shame. I'm so sorry, Liam, she began, her voice choked with emotion. I let my prejudices speak louder than my reason. You didn't deserve that. Liam looked at her, his determination reflected in his gaze. I just wanted to prove that I am innocent. No one should be judged without evidence. Silence hung in the air for a moment as emotions swirled around them. Edith seemed to be reconnecting with a part of herself that had been lost over the years. Thank you, Liam, she finally said, sincerity in her voice. You've taught me that fear and prejudice can make us lose what really matters, trust and compassion between people. With a gesture of reconciliation, Liam smiled, feeling that despite the hardships, there was a glimmer of hope shining amidst the darkness. The atmosphere in the neighborhood felt different that afternoon. A light tone of celebration hung in the air as neighbors gathered in the Central Park to celebrate the capture of the thief and Liam's reintegration. The sun was setting, casting golden rays over the lawn, where children played and adults exchanged smiles and greetings. Rachel watched the scene with a mix of relief and pride. Her son, Liam, was at the center of attention, confidence now shining in his eyes. Look, Mom, I did it, Liam exclaimed, holding the old pocket watch in one hand and a small paper trophy his friends had made for him in the other. We found the real thief. Now everyone knows I'm innocent. Rachel smiled, her heart warmed by her son's happiness. She stepped closer and hugged him, feeling the vibrant energy radiating from him. You were amazing, Liam. I always knew you could clear your name. Meanwhile, Edith, who had stepped back a little from the crowd, watched the interaction between Liam and his mother. The old woman felt a mix of guilt and admiration. She approached hesitantly, her hands trembling. Liam, can I talk to you for a moment? The boy, surprised, waved goodbye to his friends and turned to Edith. Sure, Mrs. Edith. What's up? I want to apologize, she began, her voice shaking. I let my prejudices overpower my reason. I was unfair to you and your mother. Liam looked into her eyes, recognizing the sincerity in her expression. I understand, Mrs. Edith. It happens. But I'm glad you see the truth now. Edith took a deep breath, feeling a weight lift off her shoulders. I would like to offer you an occasional job. I know you fix things. Could you help me with some things around my house if you want? Wow, that would be cool, Liam replied, a smile spreading across his face. I would love to help. Rachel, who had overheard the conversation, intervened with an understanding look. That's a great idea, Edith. Liam loves fixing things, and this could be a good opportunity for both of you. As the conversation continued, the community began to gather around the playground, where a table had been set up with food and drinks. Officer Thompson, who had defended Liam, made an impromptu speech. Today we celebrate not only the capture of a thief, but also the unity of this neighborhood. We need to learn to trust each other again. The crowd applauded, and Liam felt a wave of hope. He looked at his friends, all excited, and realized he had found true support amidst the chaos. Let's celebrate, everyone, shouted Marcus, raising a cup of juice. To Liam! To Liam! Echoed the others, and Liam felt embraced by a wave of affection. He smiled, his eyes shining with emotion. As the party continued, Rachel stepped back a little to watch her son. It was gratifying to see how he had overcome such a significant challenge. "You're becoming a true leader, my love," she said, moving closer to him. "I just did what had to be done, Mom, but I couldn't have done it without my friend's help," Liam replied humbly. She stroked his hair, reminiscing about the difficulties they had faced. "You've always had a good and just heart. That's what matters. I'm so proud of you." Music began to play, and Liam pulled his mother to dance. They joined the neighbors who were swaying their hips and laughing. In that moment, all tension seemed to dissipate, and the community began to rebuild itself, brick by brick, based on trust and forgiveness. As night fell, Liam smiled at everyone around him, feeling that despite the hardships, they were stronger together. The light of trust began to shine again in the heart of the neighborhood, and Liam was now a symbol of this renewal. The atmosphere of the community party was charged with joy and relief after the capture of the thief. Music echoed through the streets, and children ran from one side to the other while adults gathered in small groups chatting and sharing laughter. Liam and his friends were at the center of the action, surrounded by neighbors who now looked at him with new eyes, filled with respect and admiration. The tension that once hung over the neighborhood seemed to dissipate, and the community began to unite once again. However, the tranquility was abruptly interrupted when a woman, dressed in a long, dark coat and a hat that partially concealed her face, appeared at the street corner. Her eyes intensely observed the expressions of relief and happiness on the faces of those present. A murmur spread through the crowd, and soon all eyes turned to her. "Who is that woman?" whispered Marcus, tugging at Liam's shirt. "I don't know," Liam replied, feeling a bit uneasy. "But she looks strange." As the woman began to approach, a sense of unease spread through the air. She stopped in front of the makeshift stage where some children were performing. With a firm voice yet laden with contained emotion, she captured everyone's attention. "I have something to say," she began, her voice echoing between the walls of the buildings. "Something that could change everything you think you know about what happened. My name is Clara." A wave of murmurs swept through the crowd, and Liam felt his heart race. What could this woman possibly have to say? "I was the one who planted the watch in Mrs. Edith's house," Clara continued without hesitation. "I did it to divert attention from a bigger crime happening in the neighborhood. There was a thief on the loose, and I didn't know how to alert everyone without causing panic." The community fell silent, stunned. Clara's revelation was like a bomb about to explode. Liam exchanged glances with his friends, perplexed. "But why would you do something like this?" questioned Rachel, Liam's mother, who was among those present. "Don't you realize what this has done to my son and all of us?" Clara took a deep breath as if preparing for a difficult confession. I was desperate. My son was one of the victims of that thief. I thought that if I could divert attention elsewhere, maybe he wouldn't be attacked anymore. I never thought it would harm an innocent boy." The murmurs intensified, and Liam felt anger rising within him. He stepped forward, his voice steady. "But didn't you realize that your actions caused immense damage? You shattered the trust in our community and we almost lost everything." "Liam, calm down," Marcus said, trying to hold him back. "Let's hear what she has to say." Clara, sensing the tension, raised her hands in a gesture of surrender. "I know I was wrong, and I'm willing to face the consequences. But the truth is, the thief is still out there. He could be here among you, and this distrust that has been sown could end up harming all of us." The atmosphere at the party quickly shifted, and expressions of relief were replaced by suspicion and fear. People began to look at one another, murmuring in hushed voices. "Who else could it be?" a woman asked, her voice trembling. "We don't know who we can trust now." Liam, realizing the desperation beginning to spread again, took a deep breath and decided to take charge. "Listen, everyone. We can't let fear divide us again. We need to come together and face this as a community. If there's a thief among us, we need to find out who it is, but we can't let this tear us apart," he said, looking into the faces around him. "Yes," shouted Marcus, raising his fist in the air. "Let's hold a community meeting. We need to talk about this, organize ourselves, and find a solution." The crowd began to murmur in agreement. Clara watched, visibly moved by Liam's determination. "I'm willing to help. I want to make amends for my mistakes, and I'll do whatever it takes to help find the real culprit." "Then let's do this," Rachel said, looking at her son with pride. Let's come together and face this situation as one. We can overcome our fears if we stand united. Liam smiled, feeling the strength of the community rising again. The light of trust, which had been overshadowed by suspicion, began to shine once more. Blackchild fixed an elderly woman's TV, but the next day she brought the police to his house. What happened next is impressive. Liam was sitting on the living room floor, surrounded by electronic tools and scraps of wire, a small sanctuary of creation amidst the modest apartment he shared with his mother, Rachel. The old television that Mrs. Edith had given him lay open in front of him, its interior exposed like a mystery waiting to be solved.